Ashland Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Thursday, May 11, 2023. We'll start with an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Father, we invite your Holy Spirit into this chamber today. We thank you for our city and how you've shown us your favor and protection over the years. We come as a board of mayor and commissioners, asking in faith for your divine wisdom and guidance as we strive to make the right decisions for our city and on behalf of its citizens. Be with our city manager, our staff and employees, and those in attendance today. We always pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Let us stand and salute. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have a motion to receive and file the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have a motion to receive and file the minutes for the regular meeting held on April 13, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hearings and reports. We'll start with Commissioner Clark.
Thank you, sir. I don't know who all is going to talk about First Friday, but so I'll keep mine very, very brief. First Friday was a fantastic success. Congratulations to Visit Ashland and Ashland in Motion for a season that's already lined out this year. And if you haven't seen the schedule, I strongly encourage you to look at the visitaky.com and see the schedule for the rest of the First Friday seasons, because there's some pretty good things coming up. I've been traveling this week, and it was interesting to me. I went to the Southern Economic Development Council's Meet the Consultants Conference in Atlanta for the last couple of days. And it was very encouraging to me, because what I heard from the consultants were that the best sites, the A and B sites to locate industry, are pretty well taken in the major markets, but they're not pretty well taken in the smaller markets. And so the site consultants are really focusing their efforts on places like here that have some really good sites left that haven't been sucked up in the major markets. So that was very, very encouraging to me. And of course, we'll continue to work towards recruiting industry here. So that's been my focus the last little bit. And I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Blanton.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I guess it's afternoon. So first of all, just want to say we had an officer who was attacked this past week, and just want to reiterate our support for him and our police department, and say thank you to him for his his work, and we're thinking about him for sure, what he's going through. Always want to acknowledge that. First Friday as well, fantastic event. We had great weather. Seems like the first one is the first Friday is always a good time, but that one a little bit even extra to that one, and it was I think Visit AKY and Ashland in Motion, just really building on the momentum of the years of as these events go on. So I want to mention Repair Affair. I guess it's May 20th. We need some volunteers, and we're going to be taking some efforts to try to get some more people out and help us, even if it's just you by yourself. We can use you, and we can put you somewhere, and no matter what your skill or ability is, I'm a testament to that. Doesn't matter if you can't do anything skillful, we can use you in some way. So that event obviously is a wonderful event for our citizens, and for folks to get out and help each other. Two ribbon cuttings we had. Marty, I want to leave Olive Garden up to you. But we did go to Olive Garden the other day, and found out my son takes them up on the never-ending breadsticks. We enjoyed that. Amanda Morris and the Zen place also opened, and I'll close with I was laughing with somebody the other day that it's this job. There's no instruction manual to this job. It's pretty much. We meet twice a month usually for the meeting, and that's what we do. And that's supposed to be the commitment. And anything you want to do or learn about outside of that is up to you. And I know we all do that. We all put in the work and trying to learn and educate ourselves as much as possible outside of this. And I know some of us have been looking at serious issues like housing and trying to educate ourselves as much as we can, and it's been really encouraging to learn more about those issues and then see our staff, like our CED staff, and how much that they've already been working on a lot of these issues for years, honestly, and that they're ahead of the game on a lot of these things that I'm just learning about, honestly. So appreciate you all, appreciate all of our departments who that's pretty much the case for all the departments. So thank you all very much.
Okay. Commissioner Spriggs.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Yeah, on the ribbon cuttings, isn't it wonderful? I know you all agree that all these ribbon cuttings are terrific. I mean, this was 2 in one day. So we have one ribbon cutting, sometimes 2 and 3 a week. So try to get to all of those, but it really bodes well for our city and everything that's going well here. And on First Friday, I know you all had to notice all those Ferraris and all those cars downtown. Did you see those? It was part of a different kind of travel car club, but it was amazing. I haven't seen it like that since I was in Monte Carlo. So Ashland was
Like the
transformed,
Monte
and I
Carlo,
had
the
the
car?
Wayback Machine. Yeah. So it was really startling when I saw him. It was pretty amazing. But anyway, good job on First Friday to Ashland in Motion and VAKY. It was wonderful. So. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Goot.
I want to just ditto everybody. First Friday was just great. But it was Cinco de Mayo, which we couldn't get into any restaurant. I mean, it was jam-packed, and so I ended up eating a bologna sandwich somewhere. But anyway, it was fantastic. Olive Garden is I mean, it's just something else. I want to make mention, we had a real successful National Day of Prayer at the Transportation Center, and it was a team effort, because the police were in there until 4 o'clock on the day before. This is when King's Daughters usually sets up for this. And so by the time I got there at 4 o'clock, there wasn't a stage, by the way. We didn't have a stage. So I combed the city and found a stage in the attic with Brandy Clark up at the Visitors Bureau. And she said, "You can have it if you can get it out of here." So anyway, here is my 68-year-old decrepit body. And so I called Mr. Gracie. We had streets come and get a couple sections of that. We got it down there and it was broken. And so thank God for Father Andy Garner from the Holy Family. He came and brought blocks. And Scott Hill from King's Daughters shimmied on his belly to put the blocks underneath the stage. This was at 5 o'clock on the day before. And then we had the 2 Baptists watched. So it was an ecumenical effort to try to get this stage and the Transportation Center ready for National Day of Prayer. And so it went off without a hitch, about 250 people. We have at least 4 new playgrounds, 2 at Dawson Park, and 2 brand-new playgrounds that are already finished. It's going to open up Memorial Day weekend. The one at Alvario Park will be in probably closer to the fall. And then the one at the dog park is almost finished. It just needs the floor. The city pool will open up Memorial Day. I'm not going to say anything about repair fair. I'm going to leave that to DJ. He's going to speak on that. And my last report is I want to congratulate Bill Stambaugh and the 11 employees at the water plant. And he sent me this. They got the Outstanding Water Treatment Plant Award for Outstanding Water Treatment Operations 2022. And my hats go off to them. That's all I have.
All right. I have also shared my appreciation to Bill and his team, and to know where we were just a short time ago to know where we are now with the quality of our water is really heartening to me and inspiring, I know, to other communities that are facing similar situations. Infrastructure in this nation is priority 1 right now, and our water system, I can't be prouder of our utilities department, and I know we're working hard on sewer issues as well, and I just appreciate all the hard work. I do have a proclamation to read today. It's going to be a little bit different than what Commissioner Goot described in building a stage, but it is going to be Building Safety Month here in the city of Ashland. So does anybody represent?
Building Safety Month.
There he is. our main man. Brad, you do a great job for us, and I know it's a thankless task sometimes. I always get a little nervous when I see your truck pulling my secondhand Rose Furniture store for many reasons, based on the amount of furniture I have there. But I want you to know all aisles are clear and exits are open. Okay. But I do want to issue this proclamation. Whereas Ashland, Kentucky is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role of our homes, buildings, and infrastructure, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure safe construction of buildings. And whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, the nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality codes to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildland fires, floods, and earthquakes. And whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of public safety, our local code officials, who assure us of safe, sustainable, and affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And whereas it starts with you, the theme for Building Safety Month 2023 encourages us all to raise awareness about building safety on a personal, local, and global scale. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property. Therefore, I, Matt Perkins, do, virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor, do hereby proclaim the month of 2023, May 2023, Building Safety Month in the city. Encourage all our citizens to join in us in focusing on the importance of safety in our community. Thanks, Brad. All right, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of things. First off, I want to recognize Linda Rumpke is visiting us from Columbia Gas. She's described herself as our concierge for any issues that we have. Linda's down here on a regular basis. We have periodic, I think it's 3 times a year meeting with Columbia Gas to deconflict any issues and projects. Nobody gets more frustrated than the city staff and citizens when some paving gets done and then there's work that comes back after it on things that can be avoided. I think we've made a lot of progress in our coordination with outside utilities over the last couple of years, and Linda's representative of that. So thanks for being here today, Linda. I mentioned last week I had some pictures of paving. I don't have any additional pictures of paving today, but you're going to see that on the consent agenda for one of the items that hopefully will be approved. But I did want to give you some statistics. Last fall, we paved nearly 15,000 linear feet. In this spring so far, we've paved 42,900 feet, and we still have 14,600 feet. So if you're doing math quickly, that's about 72,000 linear feet, and we should, if our estimates go right, we're always off a little above or below, but we should be able to execute the whole 2.1 million, I think it is, for paving that we had this year. So congratulations to engineering and everybody else who's involved with that.
City Manager, we get compliments all the time on the quality of the streets that we have and how quick our staff is to address potholes, and we can't, again, thank them enough in our streets department for all they do to get those things addressed.
And it's a great point. I know we get reports a lot of different ways, but whether it's through Ashland Cares or direct reports, and right, this is just paving, but you're exactly spot on, Mayor. Getting those potholes filled too is also critical and important. Could you go to the next slide? Thanks. I also reported recently to you about the CDL training. If you look up there, this is just some actual training that's going on. I'll point out 2 individuals. They're not here today. I wanted to have them here to be recognized, but they're on their way to take somebody to testing. So on the left-hand side, you'll see Frank Jones. He's to the right of the vehicle, and then on the right-hand slide, you'll see Scott Dalton. Scott works in water distribution. Frank is a mechanic, and these are the 2 men that we did the train the trainer with. If you'll recall, we spent about $10,000 to get them trained. Since then, we've had 14 other city employees that have successfully acquired their CDL. We have 9 that are in the process of being trained, and then 3 that are waiting. If we would have paid the $3,500 to $4,000 each just for those 14 that have been trained, it would have cost us an additional $56,000. The other 12 would cost us $48,000. You take away the $10,000 we got in training, that's about $90,000 that the city saved. So Jack, Mark, this was their initiative, and whoever else works with them, this has been a really, really positive thing. And I think I mentioned before that they're also not away for training for those 6 weeks. They're doing city work while they're doing the training. So it's just a great example of a good initiative by great ideas from the team. Next, please. Couple pictures, as Commissioner Goot already mentioned. These are the 2 new playgrounds down at Dawson Pool, and he's already addressed some of the timelines next. There's also some other subtle work that goes on that a lot of times people don't see. The speed bumps in Central Park, you see they're up in the upper left. I think everybody's aware of the ingot and the ingot molds that have been placed as a historical reminder of what happened at AK Steel. Erica, the public information officer, is working with, just forgot his name.
Mel Smith.
Yeah, Mel Smith. Because when we put that historical marker up, we want to make sure we've got it right. So we'll go through a couple iterations of that and get as many smart eyes on it as we can. The poles in the lower left-hand corner, you'll recognize those freshly painted. They're down at the riverfront. And then you'll also remember a couple years ago the Parks Department, repurposed the fence from the old dog park and some other places in the city, and they've extended that line down there where the walking part of the trail is. So that's done a really adequate job up to this point on reducing traffic there to make it more approachable. You'll also notice those evergreen trees there, Mayor. That's something that you brought up before as a kind of an eyesore. Those evergreens are what we had down on Broadway Square for the winter. We'll go through and put the new flowers in, but we're going to reposition some of these evergreens throughout the city. They're going to grow really quick and really tall, so that'll be really
Just to clarify, I
nice.
didn't say the evergreens were an eyesore, but the lack of the trees there.
Thank you, Mayor.
yeah.
Correct. That's at the end of the walking trail.
Okay.
And that's really, if you look where the ingots are, that's just an extension of that photo a little bit farther there, a little bit under the bridge. I would like Steve and Mark, if they would come up, and would like to give you all an update. We declared an emergency spending for the sewer line project at 13th Street and Pollard, and they're just going to give you a pretty quick update here.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Just wanted to touch on, you guys were aware of the issue that popped up in the last couple of weeks with this failed sewer line in Foodland's parking lot. These handful of pictures here shows the progress to date. One of the things that we had just to give background to those who are not aware, we had an 18-inch clay sewer line that collapsed in the parking lot there in front of Foodland. And there was no way around other than going in and actually excavating and repairing. So as you can see on the picture on the left, that is a picture, Foodland would be on your left looking towards Gibbs Hardware. That's a manhole that we had to set because the old manhole was so small it was not even accessible for people. So we set this manhole, and then if you look at the next pictures, you can see as they're working their way up through this extremely deep trench, it's borderline 20-foot deep. So it's an 18-inch sewer line about 200 feet up to the picture on the right. If you look at the farthest, you can see the piece of equipment is setting up there where the last manhole will be set. So the critical nature of this project is basically over. We're only to the point of we need to set a manhole at this last section where the excavator is. But there's still, we have to continue to do that. But like always, what seems to happen when you have borderline 100-year-old infrastructure is oftentimes when we get into to look at one problem, while it's a major problem, there's some other problems that have revealed themselves that need to be addressed in the near future through sewer lining, basically. I don't know if there's anything else, Steve, that you want to touch on, or?
No, I think the workmanship there has been excellent with the contractor. He's worked very efficiently, and our crews have been very supportive of those efforts. And so it was a very challenging project, and once again, the city workforce came through as just great champions in putting forward good quality work in an efficient and cost-effective way. So a big issue of a potential state violation for overflow of sanitary sewers was avoided, and so it's just been a very successful project.
You mentioned bypass pumping. If you see there, do you want to go ahead and mention?
Okay. Well, yeah, a big part of what the city crews participated in was a constant bypass pumping that was required to divert the incoming sanitary sewage away from the work area and convey that downstream to a safe discharge point. And they did that once again very efficiently, pretty much around the clock on a steady basis. So kudos.
We did
to
have a
them.
presence out there 24/7. There was a lot of overtime. It was necessary, though, for in case the pump break down or something else. They also, Mr. Worthington was telling me today how they were also multitasking while they were out there. They weren't just sleeping in the vehicle watching the pump. They were continuing to work 24/7.
Yeah, and
I knew there was something major you found, because every time I went by there were more and more heavy equipment and trucks, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
they've taken over the whole parking lot. So good job.
And
Good job.
kudos to the commission for providing the funding that allowed this to happen in a very rapid manner. It was very environmentally conscientious on the part to take quick action on this so that there would not be raw sewage spilling
Yeah.
into our local stream. So kudos to you too.
I will mention one other thing. On the middle picture there, it's hard to see, but there's a piece of equipment up there, and they're holding a casing pipe up in the air there. And the reason for that is it's a 30-inch ductile iron casing that we had to actually push underneath a very, very large storm drain that we're working under there. It's 88 inches tall and 100 and some inches, what was it wide? The width of it?
It's about 7 feet tall and 11 feet wide.
So it's,
Just to put in perspective, if you look in the middle picture, you'll see it right about the upper middle of the screen between the two spreaders. That's
Yeah.
the pipe itself that they're having to hammer that underneath.
so that was been very challenging, and being able to negotiate. I mean, this is deep enough, but having to work underneath that made it even much
Yeah.
more significant to deal with. So that's all I have.
Mark,
Thank you
I'll
very
say
much.
one final thing is, Mr. Hall already alluded to, and that is when we start peeling the onion back, we see other things. So the root cause of this, we believe, again, on that center tin metal pipe is a really severe decay on that pipe, and there's a massive leak that you can't see in this picture. So the piping work that they did there will suffice. But we've got a similar potential problem that's maybe 150 yards away from this. It's probably going to have an impact on our lining projects. I mean, we've talked broadly before that we put so much focus on water. We haven't ignored wastewater, but their wastewater has got very similar challenges. Now, that's a storm drain, so I don't want to confuse the issue, but it's going to be something else that we're going to have to address pretty soon. We don't think it's an imminent threat of failure. If it happened, it wouldn't shock us, but it'll be something that we'll have to deal with in the near future.
Well, I can assure you this commission supports you all in prioritizing whatever you need. And if we need to look at financially preparing for that, then we're supportive of that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next, Mr. Reimer would come up, and as already been mentioned, we've got Repair Affair that's coming up in the near future, and just wanted DJ to give a broad overall synopsis.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for allowing me to be here today. As you can see on our screen, we have some pictures from last year's Repair Affair event. The Repair Affair event, it is an event that mobilizes resources and volunteers to repair homes that are owned by low-income, elderly, and disabled homeowners. The focus of this event is not a beautifying event, not to clean up a property to make it look better for free, but our focus is on home safety, security, weatherization, and neighborhood stability. As mentioned earlier by Commissioner Blanton, the event this year is May 20th, so that's next Saturday. We're asking any groups that may be interested, individuals, whether you're a carpenter or plumber or just a handyman or somebody that may not have skill, as Commissioner Blanton mentioned, and whatever, but all skill sets are needed for this event. This is great for churches to get involved, community organizations, other associations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Rotary clubs, different social clubs as well. Volunteers need to be at Central Park, at the center where the concession stand stood, at 7:30 on May 20th. We provide light breakfast and also lunch. And this year,
That's
we
important. That's really important. That's really
yeah,
important.
well, yeah, it's certainly important. I think that's what brings some people out. This year we have 50 projects, which is about 5 more than normal. And we've got Build Ashland involved again. I believe we may have some people from AEP and some other organizations, but we're seeking volunteers. So that's what I'm here to ask for today. If you guys may have known any other organizations in the community that may want to get involved.
We have a lot of trades unions headquartered in our city. Have we reached out to them?
Yeah, I've reached out to all local labor unions, Carpenters Labor Union. I actually think Marathon this year is going to take 6 projects.
Wonderful.
And Marathon traditionally has been our strongest volunteer organization for this event. So
All right.
we look forward to having a great event next weekend.
They almost nearly just built somebody a new house last year. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
that middle big picture right there. They did
Yes.
all kinds of work. It's,
It's great work.
One last thing I want to point out is I've always been impressed by this effort, but especially the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that Chris's department does and DJ and I don't want to leave anybody out because it's a real, again, another team effort, but to make it go really smoothly. You know, we've all been to events where you show up and what do we do? And there's a lot of wasted time. And as I recall, everybody just kind of gets after it. They have the breakfast, they know their assignments and get out there. So great job, DJ.
Certainly. So typically, on an average day for volunteers, they spend about 4 hours on projects. It takes city staff and other volunteer staff about 4 months in preparation for 4 hours of work.
So how long have we been doing a repair fair now?
This is the 21st year for Repair
21st year.
Fair.
Do you know that I have been able to participate in I've been there every year. My kids know they have to be there, like they've asked me, Mom, what are we doing on Saturday? Like they're ready to go.
It's a great thing, and I did it for years and years with Rotary. I wonder if you have the Key Club and things like that from the high school.
We have some different organizations that we've reached out to, and some of them are having some schedule conflicts.
Yeah.
Traditionally, we've always had this event on the 3rd Saturday of May. So, you know, we were hoping they could work around that, but I don't think some events with schools, groups
So
are
you
gonna
have
be
the
able to
joint
do that.
Kiwanis clubs coming.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, we have Ashland Breakfast Kiwanis, which I'm a part of, as well as Noon Kiwanis, which you're a part of.
I'm with the noon Kiwanis. I stopped with the breakfast because they stopped having breakfast. You know,
You're right, correct,
Takes
yeah.
all the fun out of it.
it takes all the fun out of it.
All right, DJ, thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you,
DJ.
guys.
Thanks, DJ.
Thanks
Great
for
job.
supporting this event.
3 last things. There's no slides on these, but I did give a previous update on our the trademarking of the brand and the logo. We're in the final stages of that. And again, thanks to Jim and Erica for their work. So we should have those officially locked in. We just had to show some examples of proof that we are using those. The conference center request for information is in the final stages of review. Estimate broadly that after we do some iteration on that, that will go out and we should get replies back on that beginning in July. And then the last thing, again, things that are going on behind the curtain that people don't see. There's been a lot of effort going on with the budget. I think I sent you all just a note that we're targeting the first week in June to have our first public session on that. So staff continues to do that and trying to get that prepared so we will meet the deadline of 1 July. Mayor and Commissioners, that's all I have.
All right. We have a presentation of an audit.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Oh, yeah, Mr. Workman, Anthony Workman, I apologize. Anthony's here. He's no stranger to the city of Ashland. Him and his team have done an exceptional job every year for us. The details that they do are fantastic. A lot of effort. Tony, Michelle, and the team that they represent here with finance and the rest of the city staff for putting the information together. He's got another thorough deep dive. Hopefully, I'm sure that you all read that entire report in the 10 minutes that you had.
120 pages or 130
And on the
pages?
computer.
They're very fast readers, Anthony, so I'll turn it over to Mr. Workman.
I do appreciate you having us back out again this year. I'll try not to take up too much of your time, so if you feel like I'm speeding through it, if you have any questions at all, feel free to interrupt me. But I'll just get started and go through it. So I believe everybody has a copy in front of them. If you turn over to pages 1 through 3, this is our actual independent auditor's report. It is in a slightly different format than last year. If you were to compare it last year, there was a new standard that kind of reorganized the report. It starts off with our opinion. This year at the top of the page, it says, "We have audited the accompanying financial statements of the city of Ashland as of June 30th, 2022. And that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the city as of that date." So it is what's considered a clean audit opinion or an unmodified audit opinion. There is a new section to the report. Like I said, it kind of rearranged it, the new standard did, but over on page 2, in the middle of the page, it has a little bullet point list of kind of an overall view of what we have to do in the audit. It states that in performing the audit, we exercise professional judgment and that we do a risk assessment and that we do obtain an understanding of the city's internal controls and of the appropriateness of the accounting policies of the city. Now, the last bullet point, it does say, well, we do have to consider whether there are any issues that would cause there to be a going concern or basically that the city would be failing. Of course, we do not have that, issue. But that, like I said, that is just kind of a quick 5 bullet point list of an overview of what the procedures are in the audit. So starting on page 4 through 18, this is the management discussion analysis put together by the finance department. It does go through and provide some comparisons to the prior year and gives a basic overview of the financial activities for the year. So I do suggest when you do have a few minutes, go through and read that because it does provide some beneficial information. As far as on the audit side, our responsibility for this is make sure it does not disagree with anything within the financial statements itself. That's in our reading. Starting on page 19 and 20 is the statement of position for the city as a whole, which is essentially the balance sheet if you were looking at a for-profit entity. On page 20 at the bottom of the page, you can see at the end of the year the city had total net position of $49.6 million. This combines basically all funds of the city. It includes your fixed assets. It includes offsetting the debt in there as well. I know I mention it probably every year I'm here, but the largest liability on any city, any local government anymore are retirement and health insurance liabilities for retirees. And at the end of the year, that was $73.7 million for the city. Now, the majority of that is the county retirement, but I believe $7.6 million of that total is still related to the police and fire retirees fund and along with the utility retirees pension fund. And as you mentioned, you are working on the budget now. It's interesting. I went back and looked at those contribution rates for the county retirement for next year. They're actually decreasing. I'm sure you're already aware of that, but for non-hazardous employees, it's going down of almost 3% to 23.34%. And there's a big change for the police and fire from 49% down to 43%, almost a 6% drop there. So that should help in budgeting and the budgeting for next year.
That may be the only time during the post-pandemic that something has decreased.
I was actually shocked when I went out there and kind of looked this morning to see what those rates were going to be for the following year, especially since they had been increasing them every
yeah,
year.
steadily.
And during COVID, they had that freeze and then went back to increasing them. So, yeah, it was almost a 6% drop. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
What?
$400,000.
Wow.
They actually changed them yesterday, which we have to change every number in the budget.
So that was very recent. I'm glad I looked this morning then and not yesterday in preparing. So, over on page 24, this is the statement of revenues and expenditures for the governmental funds of the city, the primary being the general fund. As you can see, the first column over on the left, the general fund ended with a $14.7 million fund balance at the end of the year. And that does include, I believe, $2 million of that at the end of the year was committed for economic development, is my understanding.
Yep.
Overall, there was a $5.7 million decrease in fund balance over prior year. And that does include primarily transfers over to the capital projects fund for capital projects going on in 23 fiscal year. So if you were also, however, to compare your licenses and permits of 16 million, that includes the occupational fees and the net profit license fees, they'd actually increase over prior year of about $2.2 million over the 21 fiscal year, 22. So it was a good year. The tax increment fund, TIF fund, as you can see, it had a decrease, a fund balance of almost 200,000. Still goes back with that incremental revenue. It did go up another 10% from $100,000 last year. It's at $111,000 for 22. So in the future, hopefully in this following fiscal year, it'll increase even more. Over on page 28, those, like I said, those are the governmental funds. Essentially, the statement of revenues and expenses for the proprietary funds of the city would be the utility fund, bus system, recreation fund. The utility fund had an increase in its net position of $850,000 during the year. You'll notice that the new fund being added on is right at the end of the year, the parking garage was donated to the city right at the end of that fiscal year, I think like middle of June. And there was so that was a new fund that was added, along with a contribution of $1.8 million for the parking garage that was based on an appraisal that was performed at the time of the donation. So that would be a new item on there. Starting on page 39 are the notes. 39, I believe, to page 72, the footnotes. It does detail the accounting policies. It provides some additional details on the capital assets, the city's long-term debt, and the retirement information. Footnote 2, I won't hit, of course, every single one of these. I'll just point out a few. Footnote 2 does detail the summary of significant accounting policies. These are considered generally accepted for other similar government entities out there. And on page 49, footnote 6, the summary of the capital assets. It's broken down between the governmental activities, and we're on top of page 50, the business type or the proprietary funds. Overall, on the governmental activities, there's an increase of $1.1 million in the city's capital assets, the majority of that being including paving and sidewalks and things of that nature. For the business type on page 50, there was a net increase or additions of, I think, about $5.8 million being sewer and water plant upgrades and upgrades to the city parks. That was also in there for the Parks Department, and the parking garage is included in that amount as well. That was donated. Footnote 7, it details the retirement plan. There's 13 pages. I think maybe you might have even increased the page over last year on retirement plans. Always something else always gets added in there. I will just say that footnote is there if you are interested in reading about the assumptions that go along with those plans. Yeah, oh, that is some good reading for you. It may put you to sleep, I don't know. But on page 60, bottom of page 63 and 64, it provides a detail of the long-term obligations, the bonds of the city. And on page 64, there's a table broken down by once again, the governmental activities and the business type. There were no new debt issuances during that fiscal year of '22, but overall, there was a decrease, I think, of $2.7 million paid down on the city's debt during fiscal year '22. One more footnote that I usually do like to point out, and I found it interesting again this year, is on page 71 in the risk management footnote 14. There's a summary of the change in the claims liability for the health insurance, where the city is essentially self-funded for the health insurance. Sometimes those premiums and those current year claims there can be a widespread variance from year to year. In '22, those increased $1.2 million from over '21. Now '21, you're still coming back with COVID. If you would compare, I think even in '21, from 2021, there's a decrease of $2.3 million. So even over, if you're looking at it on a 2-year period, the city has saved still over $1.2 million. And I believe at the same time we changed the anthem. Am I correct on that? Right there in fiscal year '21. So I still think that change over to anthem was probably a good decision on the city's part. I mean, there was if you look at those 2 years in net, there was a $1.2 million savings. And even if I actually went back this morning, also compared it to 2017, 18, and 19, and you're at the current year claims, I'm not sure what 23 looks like, but 22 is still less than those, even those 5 previous years, going all the way back to 2017, so. Hopefully 23 is not going to be a turnaround, or 24. 24. So there's just one more item I'm going to hit here, starting on page kind of 103 and 104, the schedule of findings and question calls. I won't go through each one of these, but there were part of the audit 8 findings, I believe, in total, and they all related to Section 8, the Section 8 program, and they were essentially in part of our single audit testing. They were primarily related to operational internal control in nature. We did notice a few overpayments to landlords that I believe were recovered shortly thereafter in that. But as part of these, and like I said, I have went over these with the department head, and the city manager, I believe, went through it. They are responses from management in here on those that they are on, as far as on what they plan to improve, and we do have our recommendations in here as well. And I would say that, in going through this, that the department has been always open to our suggestions and willing to implement anything they can to correct issues and improve their control structure along the way. So, like I said, I feel like I went through that fairly quickly. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or anything else I might be able to hit in more detail? Throw a lot at you, throw a big book at you of 115, 20 pages.
Yeah.
Well, as always, I am available if anybody does have any questions, or they can feel free to contact me.
Anthony, I know there's some curveballs this year, there is every year. So I'm in regular communications with finance and the rest of the team that's affected on these, and every year I see this, I gain a greater sense of confidence on what this process does for the city. I appreciate the staff being open-minded to looking for those weaknesses, material weaknesses, and ways to get better, and just not making the same mistakes again. I mean, to me, that's the biggest. It's the value of this whole process, is making us better. I know, and there's just so much work that goes into this that culminates in this huge report. So thank you, Tony, Michelle, to all your folks. Thank you very much for the hard work, and to the rest of the staff for contributing to the process.
Thank you all. So, I do see it as a improvement process as part of just helping the city improve in their operations. The audit is just one more thing in that process. So, No further questions? Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on to public participation. Anyone with a comment or request may come to the podium and address the commission concerning matters related to city business, services, or personnel. Comments related to election issues or concerning personal disputes will not be allowed. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Only one speaker is permitted per subject. No action will be taken at this meeting. Those with comments are asked to fill out an inquiry form and leave it with the city clerk for distribution to the proper city department. Would anybody like to come forward at this time? Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm gonna put you guys to work, so everybody else is gonna work, y'all need to help me. The dates of where we're putting the flags out is 25th at Rose Hill at 9 o'clock in the morning. The 26th, Amanda, you need at 10 o'clock, and make sure they bring a battery-powered drill or screwdriver, because that ground is
I
hard.
put it on the list, Mike.
Huh?
I put it on the list.
Okay, thank you. Then on Saturday, the 27th, we'll be at Golden Oaks. And on on Memorial Day, the Veteran Cemetery will have their service, and I'm gonna be part of it, so.
So when are you doing Ashland Cemetery, the 26th?
I just got a call about that about 10 minutes ago, and I'm gonna go talk to the man. I'm getting ready to leave, and I'm headed over there, so.
Okay, because DAR will be
Yeah.
there, okay.
Mike,
So-
what time is the ceremony on the 29th?
It's at 10 o'clock at the Veteran Cemetery.
Thank you.
He called me a little bit ago. I'll let you know. I'll probably have to have a lot of help over there, so.
Yeah. Well, I need to know.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
all right, I'll
Thank
see you all next
thank
meeting.
you. Anybody else like to come forward at this time? Hearing none, old business.
No old business. Consent agenda. I think we have a resolution of the City of Ashland, Kentucky adopting, authorizing, and approving the course of action presented by the city manager on the items appearing on the consent agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of City Commissioners of May 11th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And new business, item A, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Ashland, Kentucky, amending ordinance number 31, series of 2023, as previously amended, which adopted a classification and compensation plan for the City of Ashland, Kentucky, proposed and recommended by Baker Tilly LLP Consultants.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No.
Hang on. Well,
Go ahead if you had discussion.
yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
discuss.
Go ahead.
Okay. So what we originally voted on, this is a change to what we originally voted on, right?
The proposal is to strike the portion of the original ordinance that put the cap at 5 years, I think, on 114.
6 years
above.
at 0.5%.
6 years at 114
It
above.
was just 3%.
And it would delete that provision, which has the effect of just meaning that would not apply at all.
Right, so the note says it would allow language to enact the recommendations, which that was enacted, it just was capped at that 6% number. So this would essentially just remove that we originally
Correct.
did. Okay.
I just have a question is this your recommendation to put this back on the agenda?
Me?
No, Mr. Gracie.
No.
Whose recommendation was it?
I asked for it.
Okay.
It eliminated 6 people. We paid for this Tilly Baker study, and we should have followed that. What we did affected 6 people, and we need to include them in this.
I have no issue with the money. I truly don't.
Yeah? Yeah, it's
Doesn't
not
matter to
that
me.
much, yeah.
You and I had we've had several conversations about the pay.
Yeah,
And I did exactly what I was asked to do, to figure out how to basically put a limit on the top salaries. And I presented that, and like I said, whatever happens, happens. I'm not.
Sure.
My issue with this on the agenda is the process and the fact that it's not a recommendation of the city manager. It wasn't driven by anything other than staff who basically said, you guys got it wrong, you need to fix it. And that bothers me.
Well, as
The
you know.
original, we amended the original. The original was a recommendation of the city manager.
Yes.
I agree with
And
that.
also, there's nowhere written that it has to be recommended by a city manager to be on the agenda. And also, we knew no names when we were talking about this. We hadn't singled anybody out. This was not a,
Exactly.
it was
There was
not
nobody
that.
signaled out, or
It was
singled
not
out.
that. But when it came down to it, I'm looking at 6 people and thinking, why is that? It doesn't seem fair to me. And so that's when I talked to, I think I talked to each one of you at some point about it, and decided that we need to do something about those 6 people.
Well, here's, my only comment would be that, I believe that every commissioner has an opportunity to request the city manager put something on the agenda.
I agree completely.
I think that is appropriate for the board to have a request. And then I think it's appropriate that when that request is honored, that then the commission has a good discussion like we're having today about it. I think that's
No, I
a
agree.
part of it.
I agree. Like I said, my problem is not with the money, it's not with, I never intended to single out 6 employees.
it was
Like,
that-
what I showed you had no names on it.
It was not
It was
that.
very clear.
It was not that.
Where the line was, as far as people who've always been well compensated, people who are at the top end of their pay scale. If we were going to find a way to start squashing that a little bit, that was the way to do it. And like I said,
But I
I'm
will tell
not
you
saying
something.
any of this in being offended by saying, I think what you did was wrong. Not at all. I just don't like the process.
Okay,
I
so-
don't like hearing in this building that my motives were questioned. I don't like hearing, and not from you, not from you.
I didn't
I'm
hear
saying
anybody say
I have.
that.
I have.
I think-
And in my opinion, that is absolute insubordination, and I don't like it.
Well, nobody said that to me.
It's been said to me.
Well,
I'm not happy about any of it.
Well, I wouldn't be happy about that either, but here's the thing. When we look at people being at the top of their pay scale, of course we want them to be. We want them to be here as long as they can, and we want to keep our good
I agree.
employees.
I agree.
We want to keep our good employees. If they're always staying at the bottom, they need to find a job somewhere else.
And-
Because we want excellent people in our positions.
And I think-
We should have rewarded them the same as we did everybody else.
The good thing, the good, step back for a minute for anybody that is looking at this, outside. We went through, city manager and the staff went through a very intense process with Baker Tilly, and everybody should be congratulated for doing the right thing and getting people at the bottom of our scale and the middle, everybody where they need to be. I mean,
Yep.
that's something that was an accomplishment by everyone, and that should, we should be proud of that. I think the intention of this was looking at the top part of the scale, and where that 0.5, we have taken, that changing, going to the Baker Tilly recommendation for just the salaries was the right thing to do. We got people where they needed
Yeah.
to be.
Absolutely.
We were just looking at the 0.5% and where that puts, because it's on years of service, right? And so, it's not about anybody, because listen, we're all going to be gone out of here at some point. Everybody in this room will be
Yep,
gone
that's
at some
right.
point. So we need to think about not as people, but the process. And so when you have 0.5% times whatever those years are, it doesn't matter who it is, is that number appropriate at the top end? And so I think the thinking of it and why I voted for it, and I thought it was a good idea, I still do, is it keeps that appropriate. We took care, everybody's being paid, competitively where they should be, where everybody deserves to be, honestly. We took care of that. This is just about that top end, and is that the appropriateness of that upper top end level.
Well, the thing that bothered me, I think, a lot about it was that, not knowing who any of these people were, we had no idea, but I guess I was not uncomfortable with, I didn't have enough time really to spend on it. We should have tabled it maybe so I could have looked at it more. doing something like that at the last minute, it was unsettling for me. Then when I realized it was only $28,000 for 6 people, it just.
Yeah, like I said, the money's
yeah,
insignificant.
Yeah. So,
Well-
hopefully we'll rectify this and,
Well, let me just say again, I appreciate each of you for your commitment to your fiduciary responsibility. I think it's important that you do take time to review everything, and I think this board does take a lot of consideration into cost. But also, I think this board supports the service of our employees.
Yes.
And I think has faith in them, and the one thing I can count on from all of you is your full faith and support of our city employees and the work that they do, whether they're at the top or the bottom. You all have been champions for them, and I appreciate that.
I'd like to make one comment, Mayor. I want to clarify something. I did not ask for this to be on the agenda, but it has already been discussed. If a commissioner or the mayor requests to put something on the agenda, I will. I was not at the meeting. I was out of town when your motion was made, Commissioner Clark. I disagreed with it. My recommendation was to take Baker Tilly the way it was, but at the same time, the decision was made, the first and second. It was not, it was a decision by the board. So I felt like it was over at that point. So I just want to articulate that, because I thought what Baker Tilly did, and whoever it mentioned before, for the public to know, that was a couple-year process.
Yeah.
From the beginning of getting the directors involved for the past couple years on reviewing the job titles. Every organization I've ever been in, people say, well, I'm not getting recognized, or I'm not getting compensated for the work we're doing. Predominantly on this pay study, the lower end of the people in the city, the people that are ranked lowest, if you will, were not compensated fairly. But this was a cost of labor study from the lowest paid person or the lowest rated person to the highest rated person. And they did a very effective job at that.
I just want to say, we were all concerned about that. Everybody up here was concerned about that. Our lower-ranked employees not being compensated for, correctly for what they were doing. And I think that study showed that they weren't. And when we saw comparative cities in there and all that stuff, I think we all did our homework. I think, but I hope this will correct this part of it, and we'll be back on track.
Let me add one thing too, just so everybody be clear. In a regular meeting, items aren't required to be on the agenda for any of you all to bring up and propose an ordinance. But they do, and they are required to be written ordinances. So typically when any of you suggest that there's something you want considered, I try and find out what it is you want and write that ordinance, whether it's something I personally support or not. And if we know somebody's going to bring it up, then the city manager puts it on the agenda, because it's just more orderly. But technically, anybody could bring it up anyway, whether it's on the agenda or not.
And I think that's what you're really,
What I don't want to see
yeah.
from this commission is decisions made and then going back at those decisions. That's all. That's my point entirely. It was voted on, it was done, it was over. To go back at it, in my opinion, is not the way.
Well, and I appreciate.
Well, I disagree. If there's something obviously wrong, it needs to be corrected, and that's,
Well,
we
and again,
have the
that's.
ability to do that.
And listen, the one thing, I think we're again, a deliberative body, so there are sometimes issues where we've had unintended consequences, and we do revisit, but I think to Commissioner Clark's point, what we want to maintain is a level of professionalism and from everybody, and to encourage folks that have concerns or issues to always, go to their supervisors or go to their city manager, and then the city manager can present that to the board. But I think that's actually a separate matter from what we're actually dealing with here
It's kind
today.
of the same, but yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as the request on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I will say that there's been multiple issues since I've been on the board that I've been appreciative that Commissioner Clark has educated me about, because sometimes I need information. Staff educates me a lot, so all of you all educate me a lot, but nobody more than Commissioner Clark, because she knows what she's talking about. And when she goes through these issues, and I appreciate that, but it's up to me at the end of the day to do that. Now, she's someone who I get information from, and the staff and everyone up here, but it's up to me to make my own decision, right? And what I know about the information that she's given me in the past, and I'll just make the statement that she doesn't make the statement she made easily, and she wouldn't say that if there wasn't cause to it, and I support her 100%. I feel exactly the same about what she said, and yeah, so.
I mean, we all need,
It's not that I don't support her, it's not that I support
No, I
support
know.
No,
her.
and I
I'm
don't think
not-
that's,
not
no,
what I'm saying.
and
I
I
mean,
don't
it's
think.
not
any-
my
You know me
personal
better than that
attack.
to think
No.
that
But
my
let's
feelings
go
are
with
hurt.
let's go with the house done. We get an agenda on Friday from Susan. And then stuff is added probably by maybe Monday or something. The deadline's like Tuesday.
You get a draft agenda by COB on Friday, Commissioner, and we have our staff meeting. We do the final nugging through on Tuesday. There's always, almost every time, there's additional information that's needed or fine-tuning this to make sure that it's presented properly and accurately. And as Corporation Counsel pointed out, even with that process, which is a very meticulous process, there are still things that may not be caught. But yes, you get a final copy at COB on Tuesday.
On Tuesday. So we got a couple days. Usually I get a phone call or a message or an email that says, is everything okay? Do you have a question about this? I didn't hear any objections until the 11th hour, until I was sitting right here,
Well, and
till the amendment.
again,
And so the NFL has an instant replay. They instituted that back in the 80s. And when a play, is made, they look into the monitor and they either stay with it or they go back on the field, and all these professionals say, under further review. And then they change their mind about it.
Yeah.
When the dust settled, after I voted for this, I thought, wow, 6 people. I want to make this right. And you're talking about, I didn't know the names or anything, but this, come to find out, is 6 very important people that we'd be up a creek without a paddle.
well,
if,
and Commissioner, I will say this, I don't think it's about the names or the money, but I do think it's just about, in my opinion, for my vote, it's just following the recommendation of Baker Tilly. And I think the process that was put forth was deliberate and exhaustive, and I think at the end of the day, that's the only reason I'm
I
voting
agree,
yes on this.
Mr. Mayor, and I want to say, I respect every commissioner up here. Everybody
Absolutely.
does their
Absolutely.
homework, everybody has different opinions, everybody has different passions. But if I want to know something, I mean, I start with the #1 lawyer down there and try to figure out if there's
Get that
something I
in
have
writing,
questions
Jen.
on.
You heard
you
it.
know.
remember
Write
that.
it down.
And then I may call up a commissioner, and I'm like, what, is this your bailiwick, whatever, so, but we do that. But we cannot be so rigid that we can't fix things. We have to be able to go back and correct something if it's wrong.
Or at least deliberate on it.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely.
Any other comments at this time? Okay, we had the yeas. Do we have any nays?
I'm a no.
Okay.
Did you get that, Susan?
Yes, sir.
All right. Item B, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Ashland, Kentucky and People's Insurance Agency, LLC, to provide property and casualty insurance broker agent placement services from July 1, 2023 to June 30, 2024 in the amount of $14,000 and authorizing payment of the same.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item C, first reading and approval of an ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the City of Ashland, Kentucky authorizing and directing the mayor to submit the program year 2023 action plan for a community development block grant to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and upon acceptance of said application from HUD, to execute on behalf of the City of Ashland an agreement with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to enable the city to undertake these activities and/or any and all documents associated with the grant submittal.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Question.
Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead.
Is there, I couldn't get the thing to open on my iPad. Is there anything in here that I'm not allowed to vote on? Susan? I didn't see anything for the Housing Authority.
Well, if
Okay,
we would
I
like,
just wanna
we could
make
have
sure.
Jacob come up
That's
and go over.
The intention was to have Mr. Reisner come
Okay,
up.
sorry. I just want to make sure I didn't
That is correct.
not follow the rules.
Good afternoon. I don't believe there's anything on there
Okay.
that's an issue for you. So I'm just going to highlight some of the more significant projects for the program year 2023 action plan, which is the same as our fiscal year 24. They just label it differently. First, the allocation for this year is $516,000, which is $22,000 less than last year. And I'm also estimating about $1.1 million from carryover funds from the previous years. We've allotted $164,000 for public services to help low and moderate income people with various resources such as food and housing. $80,000 of this will be to reimburse for operating costs, which is typically food, supplies, utilities, and insurance for the public service agencies. The other $84,000 is carried over from current contracts that we have with CARES, Hillcrest Bruce, and Salvation Army for employment and education case managers. We also have a few minor facility upgrades for public service agencies. These include 5 new air conditioners for the neighborhood, a new air conditioner for the senior center, which actually may be completed by the end of this year, but I went ahead and put it on there for next year just in case it's not. We're also going to do some new front windows for the senior center because they've had a lot of water and mold damage coming from their current windows. And we're also going to install some energy efficient lighting and ADA compliant doors for CARES. One of the larger facility upgrades is our Salvation Army emergency shelter rehabilitation, which would install an exterior fence and internal security partition for their lobby, and also convert an unusable and non-commercial kitchen and storage closet into a third family room, make a little extra room for them internally. We'd also considered at one point expanding the size of the building and or converting their larger building into the shelter itself.
Is that still an option?
I don't believe we're going to take either one of those routes at this point.
Okay. And that's based on their own recommendation?
They said, Major Swain told me that he didn't believe that their corporate office would go for the conversion of the larger building.
Okay.
Let's see, the next carryover project is the playground equipment and surfacing for the East Central Park, which is located on the 32nd block of Central Avenue, which was actually approved at the last commission meeting. It was awarded to Bluegrass Recreation for $167,000. They told me they would anticipate getting that completed by October or November, so again, that's pushing it into next year. Another carryover project is the removal of slum and blight, and we currently have about 5 properties scheduled, or not scheduled for demolition, but in the process for demolition to be paid for with CDBG. We're going to try to accumulate as many of the pre-demolition costs as possible for this year, and then they'll likely be demolished by next year. And lastly, back by what I call popular demand, we're going to do minority business loans again, because I've heard you all express interest in doing that again, and I also, Miss McKenzie, our new economic development specialist, had recently asked me if we could do anything like that, and so I told her if she wanted to help, I think that'd be a great idea if she wants to get involved with it. So.
We'll get your report on that next year.
Yeah. And lastly, I'd just like to thank you and the Community and Economic Development Department for giving me this opportunity over a year ago. And I'd like to specifically thank Ms. Lorraine Woolery and Mr. DJ Reimer for helping guide me through the process. It's been a interesting and sometimes frustrating journey, and I'm looking forward to learning more in the coming years. So.
That means it's worthwhile.
Are there any questions?
One of the things that got me fired up, among many other things, a few years ago to run for office was some of the things that I knew about that were, you just went through a pretty amazing list of things that we do for the community, and seeing the intentional misrepresentation of some of that, and the fact that you guys couldn't always defend yourself against it. And it's one of those things that I just, as a citizen, I wanted to scream about, but I said, you know what, if I was an elected official, maybe that voice would sound a little louder. So I just say that to say, we appreciate you all, we got your back, and we fully support you in all of this. Thank you very much for it.
Great job.
A couple other comments I just want to make, Mayor and Commissioners. You'll recall a year or two ago, when we folded the money in for demolition, we knew it was going to be bureaucratically very difficult, and I think Jacob has just explained that. This is not a fast process, but as one or many of you have pointed out, trying to use this vice the general fund is just a great expenditure. It is just much more labor intense to get that done. kudos on the minority and business loans. I'll also say that the process that we put in place a couple years when we reviewed those packets, and I'll compliment Mr. Moore on his participation. Everybody else, I never want to leave anybody out, but I'm personally much more comfortable as your city manager that the process we're going through on that now enhances the success rate or the ability of people to be successful by the tough questions the staff asks and some of the citizens that served on that board. And then the last thing, Michelle, did you write this fiscal note? This is the most prolific fiscal note we've had since I've been here, and it's really a good effort. If you haven't seen the document, I think Michelle did an excellent job of synopsizing that you can just look at this in a quick
all the
read
fiscal
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
get the feel of
Very
it.
good.
So,
Yeah.
Michelle, I know that wasn't easy, and
Saved
thank
me
you for
about
that
50 pages
effort.
of reading.
That's all I had, Mayor.
Well, I think one of the businesses that maybe received a grant or from the previous distribution may have reached the anniversary date or is close to the anniversary date to have that, I guess, forgiven. So I think there is some success in that program, and I too am excited as a small business person to see that there's going to be some opportunities for folks, so I appreciate that effort.
And I think, Mayor, several others are on track to reach total forgiveness, and I think that we've tried to look at these with a much more critical eye and almost treat it like a bank or something in terms of.
Well, you have to. It's not directly our public funds here, but it is public funds through the federal government, and we still need to be good stewards regardless of where it comes from.
Yeah, it's a great list to talk about, and we're all happy about it, I think. But now you all have to do the work to administer it, and that's something that I'd never
Yes.
appreciated until I came on, so appreciate it all.
Yeah. All right. We had the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I will abstain. All right, and do we have a motion to go into
Wait,
executive session?
Before, Mayor, oh, yeah, okay. I thought you were going to adjournment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
we're
a
requesting.
personnel matter.
Individual personnel matter.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to go into executive session.
Richard.
All right, let the record reflect, we returned at 1:44. Only the individual personnel matter was discussed. No action was taken.
Mayor, I would like to make a recommendation to terminate employee 11052.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.